Guys, in this video we're making a beautiful double strand loosely beaded bracelet. We've made a simple loop clasp for a bead on one end and we've used two different colours of gemstone beads and a smaller silver bead. This is a really simple, easy design that I know you're going to love. For our design today we've got two different colours of beads in the same size, so we've got 6mm amethyst and aquamarine beads and then a smaller bead in the silver, so that's a 4mm silver bead with 2mm hole. For our beaded bracelet we're using 0.8mm polyester cotton thread and we need about 30 inches in length. So just measure and cut that out. Now the first thing we do is put a bead on one end, and this makes half of the clasp. So whichever bead you want to be on the clasp part, we just place onto our thread and then place the ends of our cord together, pulling that bead down to the middle. Holding that bead in the middle there, and now we can tie a simple overhand knot. So bringing the cords around to form a loop, bringing the ends through the loop, and pulling the knot down tight. You want that bead to have a little bit of movement, so leave that knot a couple of millimeters away. Giving each cord a pull to make sure it's nice and tight. So that's half of your clasp there. Now we can start our really simple beading technique. So lay your bracelet down on the table, and now we've got our two threads and we're just going to place one coloured bead onto each thread. So my light blue bead onto this top cord and the purple one on this bottom cord. And now the next bead we place is going to be a silver bead. So this is why we needed a bead that has a slightly bigger hole, because we've got to fit both cords inside the bead, and this holds those threads together. So with two 0.8mm threads, a bead with a 2mm hole works quite well. They can still be a little bit tricky as the ends get a bit frayed, but you can cut the ends on an angle and that helps them get through. Now pulling all your beads down to the end, and that's your first stitch. Now again we place one coloured bead onto each thread. So my light blue one goes onto one thread, purple one goes onto the other. My purple beads are much harder to get on than the blue ones, but I will persevere because I love these dark purple beads so much. Once your coloured ones are on each thread, then it's time for another silver bead. The silver bead goes onto both threads to pull the threads together. Taking your time working those cords through and pulling all the beads down to the end. In between each stitch, I like to pull on that bead right on the end, on the clasp, and just keep the tension through the beads so that it's all sitting nice and evenly. You don't have one thread getting looser than the other. Now we're back again to placing one coloured bead onto each thread. Actually, I will try and place my purple one on first because they're a lot harder to thread. So if I can't get it onto this thread, hopefully I can get it onto the other one. Once our two coloured beads are one on each thread, then it's back to our silver bead going onto both threads. Pulling our beads down to the end. Now it's up to you how tight you pull your beads together. Those beads aren't going to go anywhere, but they do sort of move around a little bit in between the silver beads. So it's up to you how tight or loose you want them all together. I also don't worry about which order my coloured beads are going in, they just sort of fall where they fall. Now continuing on, we just repeat this exact same stitch until your bracelet is your desired length. So one coloured bead onto each thread and then a silver bead onto both threads. I'm going to continue mine down to about 18 centimetres and then pop a clasp on, which is going to bring the total up to about 19 centimetres in length. Okay, so once you've beaded down to your desired length, we're going to attach a clasp. So you can see mine here, right from the very tip of that bead on the end is about 19 centimetres, but really the clasp is extra on top, so I sort of aim for about 18 centimetres from the first knot right to the end knot, and then the clasp is just extra on top. Now check all your beads that you're happy with the spacing, and then we tie another simple overhand knot. So keeping tension on both cords and then bringing them around to form a loop, bringing the end through the loop and pulling it down tight. Spacing all your beads out as well, making sure you're happy with everything. You can always untie and retie a knot before it's finished. Now, if you're happy with this part of your design, then we're going to go ahead and tie another knot to make our knotted clasp. So we're going to tie another knot just far apart from the other knot so that we can slip our bead through. So bringing that cord around to form a loop, bringing the end through the loop, and now we're gently going to pull this knot tight on a spot that we can fit this bead through. So just check it as you go, making sure it's going to be the right size for your bead. So you want it to be quite tight, but just fit through in between. Then you can pull that knot nice and tight. And that's just a simple knotted clasp. Now just double check everything. Make sure you're happy with the sizing and length of everything and how your beads are sitting. If you're happy with everything, then you can cut these tails off just outside the knots and singe with a lighter so they don't fray. So there's your really simple double strand loosely beaded bracelet.